My name is Alina Hayes, and I remember the exact moment my life began to crack like thin glass under pressure. I was standing in the middle of our bright kitchen holding a wedding invitation in my trembling hands, while my husband Daniel looked at me with a calm, cold expression that I had never seen before. The sunlight came through the window and touched his face, but it did not soften him, it only made his eyes look even more distant. He said it again slowly, as if I had not understood the first time. "You need to cancel your sister's wedding." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. My sister Emily had dreamed of this day. Since we were children, she used to wrap bed sheets around her like a bride and walk down our hallway while I threw flower petals in front of her, laughing and promising I would always be there for her. I tried to smile at Daniel, thinking this must be a joke, but his face did not change. I asked him why, and he simply said it is necessary. He did not explain further. He did not show emotion. He just stood there like a stranger wearing my husband's face. I spent that entire day in a haze. My phone buzzed with messages from Emily asking about dress fittings and decorations and music choices. And every message felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. I wanted to tell her everything, but something inside me stopped me. Daniel had always been controlling in small ways. He liked things a certain way. He wanted dinner at a certain time. He preferred that I not go out too often. He always said it was because he loved me and wanted to protect me. I had believed him, because love can make you blind and comfortable at the same time. But this was different. This was not a preference. This was a command, and I could not understand why. That night I sat across from him at dinner and tried again. I asked him gently why he wanted me to cancel the wedding, and this time he looked up at me with a strange intensity. He said, "Your sister should not marry that man." I felt confused, because he had never shown any concern about Emily's fiancé before. His name was Ryan, and he had always seemed kind and respectful. Daniel continued speaking, and his voice became firmer. He said, "There are things you do not know, and it is better if the wedding does not happen." I asked him what things, but he refused to explain. He just said, "Trust me and do what I say." Trust is a fragile thing. It can be built over years, but it can break in seconds. I wanted to trust him because he was my husband, but every instinct inside me screamed that something was wrong. I could not sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling while my mind raced with questions and fears. I thought about Emily's happiness and her laughter, and the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her future. I could not destroy that without knowing the truth. The next morning I called Emily. My voice shook as I spoke to her, and I tried to sound normal, but she noticed something was off. She asked me what was wrong, and for a moment I almost told her everything, but I stopped myself. I said I was just stressed, and she laughed and told me not to worry because everything would be perfect. Her happiness made my chest ache, and I realized I could not let Daniel control this situation without understanding his reasons. Days passed, and the tension in our house grew heavier. Daniel became more distant and more demanding. He reminded me again and again that I needed to cancel the wedding. He even offered to handle it himself, which terrified me because I knew he would not care about Emily's feelings. I started to watch him more closely. I noticed how he took calls in private, and how he locked his phone, and how his mood shifted whenever I mentioned the wedding. It was as if he was hiding something, and that realization planted a seed of suspicion in my mind. One evening while Daniel was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the table. I hesitated for a moment because I had never gone through his phone before, but something inside me pushed me forward. My hands trembled as I picked it up and saw a message from an unknown number. The words made my blood run cold. It said, "You need to make sure the wedding does not happen or everything will fall apart." I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I quickly put the phone back before he came out, but my mind was spinning with fear and confusion. Who was sending these messages, and what did they mean? That night I lay awake again, but this time my fear had turned into determination. I knew I had to find the truth, no matter what it took. I could not let my sister's future be destroyed by secrets and lies. I decided that I would not cancel the wedding until I understood everything, and that decision marked the beginning of a journey that would change my life forever. The following day I told Daniel that I needed time to think, and he did not like that answer. His eyes darkened and his voice became sharper. He said, "Time is something we do not have," and that only made me more certain that something serious was happening. I pretended to agree with him, but inside I was planning my next steps. I knew I had to dig deeper and uncover the truth that he was hiding. I started by reaching out to Ryan. I asked him to meet me privately, and when we sat down together, I studied his face carefully. He looked confused and concerned when I told him that Daniel wanted the wedding canceled. He swore that he had no idea why, and that he loved Emily more than anything. I watched his eyes and his body language, and I could not see any sign of deception. He seemed genuine, and that made everything even more confusing. As I left the meeting, I realized that the truth was not going to be simple. It was hidden beneath layers of secrets and lies, and I would have to peel them back one by one. I felt a strange mix of fear and strength rising inside me. For the first time, I was not just reacting to Daniel's demands. I was fighting back, and I was determined to protect my sister, no matter the cost. Days turned into nights as I continued my search for answers. I followed small clues and paid attention to every detail. Daniel's behavior became more erratic, and he started questioning me more often, asking where I was going and who I was talking to. I could feel his control slipping, and that only made him more dangerous. But I refused to back down. I knew I was getting closer to the truth, and I could not stop now. One night, I decided to follow him. When he left the house late without explanation, my heart pounded as I drove behind him, keeping a safe distance. He eventually stopped at an old building on the edge of the city. It looked abandoned and eerie, and my instincts told me that whatever was happening inside was not good. I watched as he went inside, and after a few minutes I gathered my courage and followed. The inside of the building was dark and silent except for faint voices coming from a room down the hall. I moved slowly, trying not to make any noise, and when I reached the door, I heard Daniel speaking. His voice was tense and urgent. He said, "I am doing everything I can, but she is starting to question things." Another voice responded, and it was unfamiliar, but cold. It said, "You need to finish this before the wedding happens, or you know what will happen next." My heart raced as I realized that this was bigger than I had imagined. Daniel was not just being controlling, he was involved in something dangerous, something that could destroy lives. I stepped back slowly, trying to process what I had heard, and that was when my foot made a small noise against the floor. The voices stopped, and I froze in fear. A moment later, the door opened, and Daniel stood there staring at me, his face filled with shock and anger. Everything changed in that moment. The man I thought I knew was gone, and in his place was someone I did not recognize, someone who was capable of secrets and threats and manipulation. I knew then that I could not trust him anymore, and that I was in danger, but I also knew that I had come too far to turn back. I had to protect my sister and uncover the full truth, no matter what it cost. As I stood there facing him, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Fear was still there, but it was no longer controlling me. I looked him in the eyes, and for the first time, I did not see my husband. I saw a stranger, and I realized that the life I had built with him was based on lies, and that realization gave me the strength to take the next step into a truth that would change everything forever.